Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gorilla Whale, a Godzilla watch-along podcast. I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I am a cyborg replacement of host Kayla Knutson.
Yes, that's right. This podcast is now having their hosts replaced with AI.
No, I'm a cyborg!
Cyborg, right. Okay, so they call Mechagodzilla a cyborg in this movie, at least with the subtitles that I saw, which is incorrect, because as far as I'm aware, cyborgs are half organic, half metal, or some variation of the ratio of the in-between. While Mechagodzilla is just full robot, right?
Yeah, I think he's just as far as we know, there is no organic component to him. And a cyborg does have to have some measure of organic component, whether it's mostly organic. Like, I think technically it's like if you have a prosthetic that like falls under quote unquote cyborg, you know, like that like the definition is supposed to be as broad as it's a human brain in a metal suit to robot arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Generally, I think it sort of means a bit, yeah, you're right. I think, like, when you think of it, it's like RoboCop, like, cyborg, you know, situation. But I think technically, yeah, he's more robot.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he's even, like, Terminator levels of cyborg. He's just, like, full... Because Terminator's a cyborg, right?
I believe Terminator's an android. That is a robot that's made to look like a human.
Right. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I forgot the skin. Yeah, the skin throws me off.
Yeah, I don't think they got, like, real human skin for those robots in universe. I think that's more of, like, an artificial skin. And by the way, we will see Mechagodzillas in the future that are cyborgs, that have organic elements inside of them.
Sick.
But not this one. This one, we are covering Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974. AKA Godzilla vs. the Bionic Monster, AKA Godzilla vs. the Cosmic Monster due to legal reasons, and this is not to be confused with Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which is the 2002 movie.
They really make it as simple and accessible as possible, don't they?
Yep, and later on we will be watching a movie called Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, which is not the sequel to this movie. The actual sequel to this movie is the next movie we're covering, The Terror of Mechagodzilla. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 is a later movie that was titled that way because of just how these movies were released to American audiences.
Okay.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the ride, Kayla.
Welcome to the Showa era.
Oh, shit.
Low-hanging fruit.
That's it. This is the penultimate Showa movie, by the way.
Oh, wow.
It's this one, and then the next one, and then we're done with the Showa era. Excited?
I don't know if I should be.
Well, with that, let's jump into the historical context. So it's been 20 years since the release of the original Godzilla. Not to the day, but to the year. And boy howdy, what a transformative journey it's been so far. Year after year, movie after movie, and we're still going, baby.
Should we be?
Well, that's a hotly debated topic. But according to special effects director Teruyoshi Nakano, when screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa was told he had to write yet another Godzilla movie, he responded with, quote, "There aren't any monsters left," end quote. Good thing he was wrong, because this movie introduces two of them, one of which will become a core part of the Godzilla canon from here on. Now, a little bit more inspiration, a little bit more background. In 1967, the movie King Kong Escapes would feature King Kong facing off against a giant robot duplicate known as Mechakong. So if it worked once, why not try it again? Plus, a giant robot suit might be cheaper to produce. And so, on March 21st, 1974, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla releases.
Was King Kong Escapes an American or Japanese film?
It was a Japanese film directed by Ishiro Honda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Honda.
Hey, Honda. Good to see you again. So, any initial thoughts before I get into the summary there, Kayla?
Well, you warned me that there was, like, a lot going on, and I will be honest, there was just it was, like, The effects were really good in this movie, I thought. I thought the effects were good. I don't think I could tell you anything else that happened.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. This is a weird one. There's a lot going on. The script definitely needed at least one more pass on it. And I'm going to be honest, writing the summary of this movie made me mad because it really opened up like how many things in this movie just don't make sense, how many weird decisions they make for no reason, how much we just focus on useless stuff when really this movie should just be about, hey, there's a giant robot Godzilla.
I feel like it was interesting to see. It's like, oh, okay, the Godzilla franchise started as kind of hard science fiction. I mean, it wasn't, I don't know, I don't know how, like, pseudo science fiction, I guess, maybe, because I don't think it really was, like, hard science fiction. I think is supposed to be based more in, like, actual believable sciences, so this is more of, like, pseudo science fiction. I don't know what the terms are. Sorry.
I think we tossed out the hard sci-fi label as soon as Godzilla started breathing atomic fire.
Well, no, but I mean, like, from the beginning, like, the first one, it was very firmly, like, science fiction based.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, there's magic. It was all like, this is the result of science. And there was pseudoscience explanations, like, high science fiction, if not hard science fiction, but like high science fiction explanations for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have magical prophecies, which it's like, yeah, Mothra is all magic, so it's like not completely out of the ordinary. But it was like, yeah, here's all of these like magical prophecies now about the kaiju, which I don't wholly oppose the concept of that, because they did kind of bring back the whole these smaller like smaller societies on these islands having a tradition of sort of worshiping Godzilla or having Godzilla like in their mythos, which is something from like the original Godzilla film of like the natives on these islands. These people from the big cities, they don't know about the mythos, but like the people that live on these smaller islands, they do. Like they have oral traditions around Godzilla and things like that, So it was interesting to see that come back. And yeah, that sort of would turn into a magical prophecy thing. But like then the magical prophecy thing is like totally true. And also there's aliens. So it just seemed like, I don't know if it gelled.
Yeah, we have a lot of science fiction, especially when it comes to the giant robot Godzilla, and we have a lot of magic when it comes to King Caesar and all of the stuff sort of around that kaiju. And we also have the psychic visions, which those are canonical within this franchise. We just kind of have people have random psychic visions, whether they're fortune tellers or children who can inexplicably psychically communicate with Godzilla. And I think psychic messaging is going to be a thing that kind of sticks around for this franchise, especially as we get into the Heisei era.
Sure.
But yeah, there has always kind of been this juggling of science fiction and magic, especially with the example you brought up of Mothra. Mothra is just straight up magic.
Yeah, and it's like, I enjoy the science fantasy subgenre. I think it's really cool. Examples would include like Star Wars and the Locked Tomb trilogy, it's not a trilogy anymore, it's a series. I'm into that stuff, but I feel like it's not gelling quite so well here. The execution is not being pulled off.
There's a lot of friction in this movie, and I think it kind of feels like a mashup of a lot of the different movies we've seen before. Like, we have the spy plot from Invasion of Astro Monster, we've got the science fiction stuff, but we also got the fantasy stuff. It's a return to form in a lot of ways, but also in a way that doesn't work.
It's too overstuffed.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about exactly how overstuffed it is in the summary. You ready?
Yep, go at it.
So, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. We open on a shot of Anguirus roaring into the night before a volcano explodes. We then cut over to archaeologist Keisuke and his brother Masahiko as they observe a traditional Okinawan ceremony. The performer, an Azumi royal descendant named Nami, suddenly collapses and has a psychic vision of a giant monster laying waste to the world. Specifically, the vision is still images of King Ghidorah destroying buildings, and King Ghidorah does not appear in this film. So I guess the psychic is just wrong. Anyway.
Yeah, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Anyway, Masahiko decides to go spelunking in a cave for no discernible reason and finds a strange piece of metal. He takes it to Professor Hideto Miyajima, who identifies it as space titanium. As he makes the discovery, an earthquake shakes the lab, and these earthquakes have apparently been happening more and more frequently. Archaeologist Keisuke finds his own cave to look into, and inside are strange ancient murals. He is joined by fellow archaeologist Psycho, who is not the Psycho from Son of Godzilla, but that'd be cool if she was, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
Psycho deduces that the mural depicts an ancient prophecy. When a black mountain appears above the clouds, a monster will appear to try and destroy the world. But when the red moon sets and the sun rises in the west, 2 monsters will appear to save the people. She also deduces that a small statue within the cave depicts the legendary kaiju King Caesar, who looks like a bipedal version of those Komainu lion dog statues that rest outside Shinto shrines.
Just a quick question. Why we are in Okinawa? How come it's named after a Roman emperor?
King Caesar?
Yeah.
Well, the story behind the name is interesting because he wasn't directly called King Caesar. Rather, the original Japanese name was King Ushiza, and Shiza was the term for that cultural artifact of those, like, guardian lion dogs. It was like another name for those statues, or another version of those statues. So you have King Ushiza, and then the movie comes to the West, and a lot of critics are calling it King Seesaw, and so eventually that morphs into King Caesar.
Okay, so it's not a weird history thing. It's an Anglicization thing.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. That's fine.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Looking at the names of these kaiju, especially when it comes to the translations from the east to the west, is very fascinating. I still love the discovery of Gigan basically meaning guy goose, which is very fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the King Caesar kaiju has no relation to the Roman Emperor King Caesar.
Okay, it's just the English name of it is an Anglicization of the Japanese name, like a phonetic translation situation. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Great.
Cool. So back to the summary. Keisuke and Psycho both take a plane to Tokyo. Keisuke to visit family, and Psycho to meet with a Professor Wakura for his help in deciphering the murals and statue. On the plane, they meet a shady guy in sunglasses and a dark coat with a popped-up collar who says he is a freelance reporter who'd be interested in what they're studying. They also see a mysterious dark cloud above the other clouds, signaling the first part of the prophecy. Keisuke and Psycho meet with Professor Wakura, who Keisuke reveals to be his uncle all along. Later that night, a mysterious man breaks into their home and tries to steal the statue of King Caesar. Keisuke fights the man, while Professor Wakura watches, too busy being entirely useless. At one point, Keisuke disarms the intruder, and Professor Wakura picks up the gun, and then Wakura continues to do absolutely nothing. This is not me foreshadowing a later portrayal by Wakura. This fight is just framed in a way by the camera to constantly remind you that Wakura is in the background and could be helping, and he is choosing not to. It's infuriating. The intruder runs and gets away, but it's revealed the shady guy with the sunglasses has been watching the whole time. Whoa. The next day, Mount Fuji erupts, and Godzilla emerges from the rock. Only now, instead of his trademark roar, Godzilla now has an incredibly shrill screech. Godzilla returns to form as he rampages through the countryside, destroying buildings in his path. But wait, isn't Godzilla a hero now? Why is he destroying buildings?
He's getting back to basics.
Getting back to basics, baby. We're going back to classic Godzilla. Godzilla's mad. Well, Anguirus, our MVP, the kaiju who's objectively better than Gorosaurus, come at me, TikTok. Our Anguirus emerges from the ground at random to confront Godzilla. Instead of speaking to each other in giant speech balloons like in Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla speaks with his fists. Godzilla beats the shit out of Anguirus, and at one point tries to rip Anguirus's jaw clean off. Anguirus has no choice but to retreat.
Yeah, there's also, like, blood.
Yeah.
Like, pinkish kaiju blood. I thought for sure Anguirus was about to die.
Yeah, no, this movie has got some blood from wounds. Like, they took a cue from Godzilla vs. Gigan, and they were like, all right, let's show the carnage. Let's do this.
And
it's
you
gruesome.
know, poor Anguirus. His best buddy in the world, Godzilla, just beat the shit out of him and tried to rip off his jaw, King Kong style. Like, what the hell?
Honestly, I think that's the mark of a true friend. Anguirus saw his boy over here, like, raging, and he was just like, hey, man, you're not acting like yourself. And if you don't quit this, like, we're going to have to come to blows.
And then he got the shit beat out of him. If I was
Got the
Anguirus,
shit beaten out of him.
I would be in therapy.
Also, the budget really shows in this movie because more than any other movie that we've watched so far, you can very clearly see the wires.
Yeah.
There's a point where Godzilla picks up Anguirus and just he's like picking him up and smacking him against the ground. And you can very clearly see the wires that are lifting up Anguirus up and down.
Yeah. I mean, when I say the effects were good, I meant like the pyrotechnics and animation on some of the like beam attacks. But yeah, the wires. Ooh.
Yeah. Beam attacks, great. Wires, not so great.
They put all of their money into beam attacks and pyrotechnics.
Pretty much. So, back at Professor Miyajima's laboratory, this is the space titanium professor, not the uncle professor. Keisuke, Masahiko, and Saiko come together to examine more of the space titanium left at the scene of the kaiju fight. They also notice Professor Miyajima's custom metal tobacco pipe, which he made out of fictional metals. When it's separated into two parts, it generates magnetic waves that can destroy electrical equipment. Why would a scientist want a pipe like that in a laboratory full of sensitive equipment? Because we need to set up this bullshit to be used later to save the day. So just roll with it.
I mean, it's a good, like, a very portable EMP device is useful as like a weapon.
And he uses it to smoke.
I would... That's like in Cabin in the Woods, the functioning coffee cup bong.
Oh, yeah.
This is the higher tech weaponized version of the functioning coffee cup bong.
This pipe shows up so much in this movie, and for what it's ultimately used for, it didn't need to be there. But we'll get to that. So, our heroes drive out to observe Godzilla, which, by the way, pause real quick. What a time that is. You see Godzilla blowing stuff up on the news, and then your professor friend is like, oh, we gotta see this. Get in the car.
Storm chasers over here.
Yeah.
Kaiju chasers would be a thing.
Kaiju chasers would totally be a thing.
They get squished.
That would be a whole subculture. There would be hashtag kaiju talk.
Like, I mean, people have died storm chasing. I think like a very famous storm chaser died pretty recently. But yeah, kaiju chasers, I feel like, would have a even higher mortality rate.
Oh, 100%. So Godzilla is blowing up an industrial port. But what's this? Another Godzilla has appeared. The two Godzillas duke it out at last, until the first Godzilla's disguise is thrown off, revealing a robot duplicate known as Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla has laser eyes, missile fingers, a chest blaster, and is the perfect toy for the holiday season. After Godzilla and Mechagodzilla trade laser blasts, Mechagodzilla takes damage to its head and retreats, flying off to its master's hideout. I need to pause here to get into some granular details. I normally try to skip over some stuff in these summaries, but in this instance, like, I had to rewind stuff to figure out what was going on here. So the whole crew is together. They were just together to watch Godzilla blow up stuff. Except for the Uncle Professor we introduced for no reason. Don't worry about him. He doesn't show up again. We need to have two Professor characters in this movie for some reason. Anyway, Professor Miyajima decides to go back to the cave where Masahiko first found the space titanium. That cave is in Okinawa. So everyone's heading to Okinawa, But while Saiko and Keisuke are taking a cruise ship there that takes multiple days, Keisuke's brother Masahiko, Professor Miyajima, and Professor Miyajima's daughter instantly arrive at the cave. The next scene, they're at that cave, while we also cut over to Saiko and Keisuke on a cruise ship heading toward Okinawa as well. I don't know why they split up. I don't know why it was faster for the other group. Moving on. So Professor Miyajima and two characters who have zero personality go to the cave. Suddenly, they are captured by aliens. These aliens look like humans, but are secretly simian-like invaders from Black Hole Planet 3. I'm hearkening back to your Jupiter 9 short film.
It was Jupiter 7.
Jupiter 7.
That Jupiter 7, I think, was mostly mentioned in bonus episodes. I can't remember if we've mentioned it in mainline episodes.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
Pay us money to find out what Jupiter 7 is. Black Hole Planet 3. Is this a planet in a black hole? Is this a planet?
Or maybe it's a planet that's near a black hole?
And getting slowly sucked into a black hole?
Is that why they're invading with a giant robot Godzilla? Because they're getting black holed? Along with two other planets?
How long does it take to get sucked into a black hole?
The other interesting thing is that you don't really have a good name for these aliens. The Hunter Space Nebula aliens, you can call them the Nebulans, or the Planet X aliens, you can call the Zillions. I don't know what the term would be for Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, so I'm just going to call them just the aliens, if that's fine.
Yeah, I feel like that's fine, because I feel like there's a lot of ways this could go terribly, terribly wrong otherwise.
Yeah.
We could call them...
the whole people.
We could call them the triad aliens. Well, no, because that triad is like a gang. Because I'm thinking 3 triad, but triads are like criminal syndicates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So their leader, Kuronuma, he threatens to kill Professor Miyajima and the other two characters unless Professor Miyajima helps repair Mechagodzilla. Because I guess these aliens that built the damn thing need the help of a human who has never seen this stuff before in his life.
Totally makes sense.
Okay, moving on. We cut over to Godzilla in the middle of a thunderstorm. Godzilla is purposefully taking multiple lightning bolts to the face and charging up an electrical aura. Badass. Back on the cruise ship, the intruder from earlier attempts to take the King Caesar statue from Saiko once more, only for Keisuke to beat his ass again in a fight scene with zero music. Keisuke shoots the intruder in the eye, and then half of his human disguise wears off, revealing his monkey face underneath. It's full, Planet of the Apes, mask effect, for those of you who haven't seen this movie. It's weird.
Yeah, and oh my god, what do you call it? The rotoscoping. The rotoscoping animation is decent. It's not wonderful, but it's decent.
Yeah, there's a little transformation effect where it's half of his face kind of melts off, and then there's the half of the mask there. It's a neat effect for the early 70s.
Yeah, it's like a melty, shimmery thing.
So the intruder flees with the statue and onto the deck of the ship. Even though it's supposed to be night, the sky is clearly blue with clouds and rays of sunshine, but fuck it, get that dark filter from the Gigan movie on it, no one will know.
Yeah.
The intruder attempts to kill Keisuke, but not before the mysterious man in sunglasses appears and shoots the intruder. The intruder falls off the boat, taking the statue of King Caesar with him to the bottom of the sea. Except, it was a fake! Keisuke pre-stole the statue from Saiko and set up a duplicate. With the real statue in hand, Keisuke and Saiko go to a hotel in Okinawa, where they find out the rest of the gang have been gone for 2 days. Keisuke, again, they were in the same place, they were going to the same location, decided to split up and take 2 wildly different forms of transport.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, they don't see the mysterious sunglasses man shoot the alien. They theorize that the way that he fell off of the boat suddenly, because they don't see the shooter, but they theorize the way that he fell indicates that he was shot, injured, and fell off of lost his balance and fell over the railing, basically. So they literally say, it seemed like somebody shot him. But then they don't tell the captain, hey, there's a guy with a gun on here. Which, I mean, what are you supposed to tell the captain? So we think that an alien that is an enemy to planet Earth was shot by a mysterious assailant. Like, that, I mean, in this world, even with kaiju, like, how many false claims of secret alien plots are used to try and cover up murders?
And we're not in a world where aliens are a secret thing anymore. The
No.
Zillions declared war on the entire globe.
Theoretically, also, what are the legal rights of aliens? Like, if you murder an alien on Earth's soil, could you be prosecuted for murder? Or are they considered, if they're not considered non-human persons, then it wouldn't be murder?
I have no idea. And you also get this sort of legal muck up because every time an alien species shows up in these movies, they're a completely different alien species that we haven't encountered before. So suddenly it's like, oh, okay, so you're part of this galaxy too? All right, okay.
Yeah, we never reuse an alien species.
No, we can't bring back the Zillions. We can't bring back the Kilax. We can't bring back the Sea People.
The sea people aren't technically aliens, I guess.
No, they're Earthlings, you're right. But they just have their little Beetleborg kaiju that they keep on standby.
This is exhausting.
So
they just carry on. They're like, oh, somebody shot him. Moving on. Suspicious. We're not going to investigate that.
Yeah, no, and by the way, the suspicious guy in the sunglasses has talked to them now twice. And every time he interacts with the main characters, there's at least 3 other scenes where it shows him just kind of like standing behind a corner stalking them. So these people know that this guy is just around. But yeah, you know, it's not like they're dealing with, you know, a bunch of other people following them and trying to steal their shit or anything like that. It's not like Keisuke's already shot someone.
Yeah, it's... They are not made for this.
No, these characters don't make smart decisions. So
when do they ever?
Right.
Gosh. You know who does? You know who was good? Tomoko.
Tomoko was great. Tomoko made smart...
Tomoko.
Give me back Tomoko.
Tomoko could handle this.
Yeah. So, Keisuke and Saiko, they stop at a hotel. Keisuke goes to the random cave to look for the rest of the Scooby Gang, while Saiko stays behind with the statue at the hotel. As Keisuke searches the cave, he finds Professor Miyajima's special pipe with magnetism and all that, and an alien that holds him at gunpoint. But once again, 3rd time, he is saved by the shady sunglasses wearing guy. Wait, hang on, no, this is the 2nd time. The 3rd time is coming up later.
Yeah.
Shady sunglasses guy comes up, shoots the alien. Sunglasses guy introduces himself as Nanbara, an Interpol agent that's been investigating the aliens.
Oh my god, Interpol.
No, it turns out he was a good guy.
Surprise! This is what we call a red herring.
Yeah, this also does reveal something about this world in that Interpol is aware of the aliens, and they do have investigations, because at this point, Earth has been attacked at least 3 times.
Yeah.
So inside the alien base, Professor Miyajima... Oh, wait, no, actually 2 times. Destroy All Monsters is in the far-off year of 1999.
Yeah. It hasn't happened yet.
Wait, hang on. Zillions, the Keelox haven't done it yet. Geigens and extraterrestrials, that's the Hunter Space Nebulans. So 2. Yes.
There's a lot of aliens.
There's
aliens. Multiple alien invasions that have happened.
Cool. So inside the alien base, Professor Miyajima finishes his work on Mechagodzilla, and he's rewarded by being thrown into a heat chamber with his daughter and Masahiko. The aliens can't just shoot them with their guns, they have to boil them alive, apparently. But after Keisuke and Agent Nanbara break into the base, they free their friends and fight their way out. Just as they're about to leave in Keisuke's car, Agent Nanbara suddenly stops. He decides to remotely start the car using a wire, causing the car to explode. It turns out, the aliens, in the minutes it took Keisuke to secretly break into the base, they didn't know he was breaking into the base, otherwise they would have stopped him. They then went outside and put a bomb in his car rather than just standing by the car and shooting them as they were trying to flee. Whatever.
Well,
Moving on.
They put a lot of money into getting good pyrotechnics for this film, and by God, they are going to use it.
There was definitely just someone behind the scenes being like, hey, what if we just blew up this car real quick? We could put it in the trailer.
Yep.
So the gang splits up again. Keisuke and Saiko are taking the King Caesar statue to the shrine in hopes that it awakens King Caesar. Meanwhile, Agent Nanbara, Masahiko, and Professor Miyajima head back into the alien base to sabotage the aliens' plans. Keisuke and Saiko make it to the shrine, only to see aliens holding the shrine tenders at gunpoint. Suddenly, another Interpol agent comes out of nowhere and shoots the aliens. No foreshadowing for this guy. He's Nanbara's partner Tamura. He only exists in this movie to shoot these people this one time. He doesn't even have a character page on Wikizilla. Moving on. It literally, like, we are two or three times now, this agent has come to save the main character. And then the one time the agent is in an entirely different place, they just create another agent to save the main character again.
Why isn't the Interpol agent just the main character?
Right? Why are we following this archaeologist?
We have so many... Like, well, it could be the Interpol agent who then gets an archaeologist who is an expert in this ancient prophecy shit that they decided to go with to investigate it.
Yeah.
Nope.
We just gotta keep inventing Interpol agents. The Deus Ex Machina for this guy.
Yep.
Our heroes place the statue on a pedestal, and a nearby mountain blows up, revealing the sleeping form of King Caesar. But the kaiju requires a member of the Izumi royal family to sing to him. So Nami, the woman who had the incorrect psychic prophecy at the beginning of the film, spends 2.5 minutes singing a song. I timed this out, by the way.
I do enjoy that we are continuing to get, what's the term? Songs?
Yeah.
Jesus. We keep getting musical numbers in these movies. I think that every movie has had a significant musical number, several of them in a row now.
I just think back to Mothra versus Godzilla, where we had the Peanuts singing a song, and then we would cut over to the Infant Islanders, like, dancing and doing a ritual. And it's like, okay, we can be on this song for a while because we have other stuff to cut to. In this movie, though, all we have to cut to is this woman singing, the stone cold face of King Caesar, and then everyone else's faces just kind of watching the song being sung for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then King Caesar awakens.
It's just... Yep. We just full on stop and have a musical performance.
Yeah. Just enjoy it. I miss the Peanuts.
Yep. I do also miss the Peanuts.
So how's Group B doing? The ones who broke back into the alien base. Oh yeah, they get immediately captured. Great work, guys. Anyway, kaiju fights. Mechagodzilla arrives to fight King Caesar. King Caesar is quick, and he has an ability to get shot in one eye with a laser and then shoot out that same laser out the other eye.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah. However, he's not strong enough to break through Mechagodzilla's space titanium. But then, Godzilla appears, the real one. Godzilla and King Caesar are the two monsters prophesized to save the day. Godzilla and King Caesar try to flank Mechagodzilla, but because it's a robot, Mechagodzilla can shoot its eye lasers one way and its finger missiles the other. Mechagodzilla can also spin its head really, really fast, creating a force field around itself that just looks wacky. It's real goofy.
Yeah. Goofy in this movie?
Yeah, right.
Goofy in my kaiju film?
King Caesar and Godzilla are pummeled by Mechagodzilla's extensive arsenal. But you know what saves the day, Kayla? Magnets.
Of course.
After charging up on lightning bolts earlier, Godzilla uses his newfound magnetism powers to draw Mechagodzilla into his grip.
Why not?
Godzilla just turns himself into a big magnet.
Why not?
A bunch of like power cables start like coming toward him too. Remember King Kong's electricity powers?
Yeah, I do. I think about them.
I think about that a lot.
I think about them frequently.
While Godzilla holds the robot down, King Caesar scratches at its space titanium hide. Then, Godzilla grabs Mechagodzilla by the head and twists its head completely off. You may be wondering, wait a minute, didn't Mechagodzilla show off that it could spin its head around 360 degrees? And that it also had a force field it could use when it spun its head around? So why would twisting its head around cause it to pop off? Well, you know what I'm going to say?
Don't think about it.
Moving on. The humans inside the alien base also use the power of magnets. Specifically, they use the weird magnet pipe to break their bindings and destroy the alien control panels, even though they could have just smashed some screens or something like that. But no, we had to use the weird detachable magnet pipe.
Yep.
That's why we had to set it up. Anyway, Godzilla goes off into the sea. King Caesar goes back to sleep after doing basically nothing. And the day is saved. The end. So, Kayla, what'd you think of this movie?
Well, like I said, the pyrotechnics were quite good, and I feel like the rotoscoping animation was also pretty good.
Yeah.
Mechagodzilla's neat.
Yeah.
King Caesar's cool, too. It was weird. At one point, I was watching this movie, and I actually had the thought of, can we get back to the kaiju? Because I did not like what the humans were doing. I was just like, whatever. I did not care at all. There was too many of them. It didn't make sense. Like, what they were doing did not make logical sense. It was like they retroactively heard my criticism about wanting the humans to be more active and have a stronger storyline, and then made me regret it, like a monkey's paw.
Yeah. There's too many characters. My first watch of this movie, I didn't even realize that Professor Miyajima's daughter was a character. She's just kind of there in the background of scenes. But otherwise, she doesn't really have character traits. Keisuke's brother doesn't really have character traits. He's just there to find the little bit of space titanium at the beginning of the movie and then hang out and be captured.
We've come so far from the interesting, dynamic, and compelling characters of the original Godzilla. What?
I mean, speaking of that, Professor Miyajima, the guy with the magnet metal pipe, he's played by Akihiko Harada, who played Serizawa in the original Godzilla film.
Okay.
So we have a return to form there.
Yeah. I miss Serizawa.
Yeah, I miss Serizawa too. It's just like we had main characters who had something to do with the kaiju fights and like the themes of the movie. Mm-hmm. But this movie is not about anything.
No, actually, it's a wonderful point, Kevin.
What this movie is about introducing two monsters to sell toys of. Mechagodzilla, I want to buy that toy. King Caesar,
yeah,
not my cup of tea, but I understand they need to get another one out there.
It's like fluffy.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you're right. What was this movie about? Because even previous films that have not been very good were about various social ills, like neglected kids and bullying and environmentalist concerns surrounding pollution. This movie, it wasn't. Yeah, you're right. Like there was so much trying to. I was spending so much time trying to untangle whatever the fuck the humans were doing that I didn't even notice that this movie wasn't about anything.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the rub with this movie is untangling what the humans are doing, because there's so many different human characters that don't need to be there. They make weird decisions all the time. They break the time-space continuum when they're in the same location, and then they're all like, okay, let's go to Okinawa, and then half of them get there instantly, and the other half of them take multiple days on a cruise ship in order to get over there for some reason.
It's not even like the whole Mechagodzilla thing. You could introduce some interesting stuff around like robotics. Like It should have been around the increasingly what's the word? How do I want to phrase it? What's the phrase? The You're gonna keep these pauses in and make me look stupid. The long, like fuck, Jesus Christ, my brain is mush. I haven't had enough caffeine. This movie could be about the rapid advancement of robotics and automation and the dangers that could pose to our current society. It could have been a whole thing where it was like, classic evil robot achieves sentience. It could have been, I mean, it's a very basic plot, but also this is the 1970s, like, you know, whatever. They could have done this whole thing where they built a mecha, like humans, forget the aliens, humans build a Mechagodzilla in order to fight incoming kaiju threats without having to rely on Godzilla, you know, because this is a kaiju that they can control because it's a mech that they can control, and it's the whole thing with wasn't this a previous? There was a whole thing with the friggin' Power Ranger suit thing. That was like a previous film where it was like, oh, it achieved sentience.
Oh, a Jet Jaguar?
And now we can't control it. Yeah, Jet Jaguar, literally in the previous film before this. Like, that was a whole thing that was going on with Jet Jaguar, where it achieved sentience and had a will of its own in order to complete its mission. They could have done that because continuity doesn't matter, and they repeat plots all the time. Mm-hmm. They could have done that with Mechagodzilla, and at least it would have been more coherent, you know, than whatever this was, in my opinion. And it could have been about the fears surrounding, like, robots, AI, automation, and all that. Like, literally, Godzilla getting his job taken away from him by a robot. I feel like people in the 1970s that were losing their manufacturing jobs to increasing automation, they could have related to that. Like, it could have been about that social ill.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really about anything except advertising toys.
It's funny you mention, like, what Mechagodzilla could be, because we are going to see a movie where humanity makes a Mechagodzilla to fight other monsters, like where Mechagodzilla is the protagonist. And we are also going to see a movie where humanity creates a Mechagodzilla, and then they lose control of the Mechagodzilla. So
these are good ideas.
Yeah, those two potentialities are explored in later movies, but not this one. Mechagodzilla is a robot made by aliens to fight Godzilla and also give him a bad name for a few minutes. I don't know why he's disguised as Godzilla.
Yeah. And they can't even repair the Godzilla that they made. They need some human to do it.
Right.
Who hasn't ever said, what? There's just, it was this god. This one was really slapdash.
Yeah.
I mean, I've complained incessantly about these silly little kaiju movies before.
Well, that's the point of the podcast.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But this is like, I mean, good God, this one's egregious. This is, like, it really just doesn't make any sense at all. Like, again, the kaiju are cool, but that's, like, the only redeeming factor. Like, it really doesn't, it just all falls apart if you look at it. Mm-hmm. Let alone, like, under scrutiny. Like, it's just, like, it shatters the second you look at it.
No, and even on my first casual watch of the movie, you know, where I'm just kind of hanging out watching the movie itself as a movie.
Before you had to do a semi-critical podcast.
Exactly. Like, it was just hard to keep up with stuff. Like, I remember the intruder had the statue, and then he got shot, and he falls into the ocean, and then later on they have the statue, and I just completely missed the, like, 2 lines where the guy was like, oh yeah, no, I switched out the statue beforehand, don't worry about it, let's move on.
Yeah, I had a hard time, like, focusing on this one because it was just not easy to track.
Yeah.
This one was rough.
Another untouched part of the plot is that you do have this intersection of technology and magic. You have the encroaching industrial might of Mechagodzilla, this giant robot with finger missiles and technology and all this different stuff. And then you have this traditional magical being, King Caesar, which the Okinawans have ancient rituals around and they summon in their time of need. Like, you can almost have like a Princess Mononoke, like industrialization versus environmentalism kind of dynamic going on there.
Yeah.
But we just don't really touch any of those themes because this movie is not interested in themes.
Yeah, this movie, it really feels like Toho gave them like a week to just kind of come up with something and said, good enough. And like the main mandates were just toy commercial.
Well, and the writer, Sekizawa, he was done with these movies. I think this is the last one he writes, actually, but he was done with these movies since like Son of Godzilla.
Yeah, but listen, I respect him getting his bag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I respect artistic integrity. Ursula K. Le Guin, she gave a speech at an award ceremony in front of all of these publishing industry professionals where she got like a Lifetime Achievement Award. I can't remember the exact thing. You could like look it up on YouTube, like Ursula K. Le Guin, like Lifetime Achievement speech or whatever. It was like in 2014. And she got up there and used her acceptance speech to talk about her concerns surrounding the publishing industry, prioritizing profit over art, and the fact that like art as a cultural institution in advancing ideas surrounding like freedom, which all sounds, maybe to some people this all sounds incredibly lofty, but like, books have always been political. Literacy is political. Like, Ursula K. Le Guin is totally correct in her concerns. And this is in 2014 that she's raising these concerns around the way that unregulated hypercapitalism is dismantling publishing. And she gives this speech in front of all of these like publishing executives and like Jeff Bezos and stuff. And this is that famous speech where she like puts the button on it where it's like institutions made by humans can be dismantled by humans, and capitalism, like we live in capitalism and it feels inescapable, but so too did the divine right of kings. All of that, and so I believe in art, but also you got to pay rent. So I don't necessarily blame the writers for taking Toho's money. I blame Toho for being just not interested at all, apparently, in making anything compelling or good.
And that's the thing looking
back.
I
guess it was a success in the sense that Mechagodzilla continues to be a character, obviously.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like, from the ashes of this, presumably we get better stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mechagodzilla will show up multiple times throughout the franchise now. And as I said, they will sort of examine different parts of Mechagodzilla. Sometimes Mechagodzilla will come back as a villain. There are some movies where Mechagodzilla is the protagonist. We are rooting for Mechagodzilla. And Mechagodzilla even shows up in the Legendary movies later, the American Godzilla movies, which,
interesting.
I don't like the design in the Legendary movies, but it is still cool when he shows up.
Okay.
But this movie right here, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, not a whole lot goes on. We have all this. It
just feels empty.
It feels empty. We have all this build up to King Caesar. Like the whole mission with the humans is getting this statue over to the shrine to summon King Caesar. And then King Caesar doesn't actually do all that much during the fight.
Yeah.
It's really Godzilla's magnetism powers that save the day.
Yeah. Like King Caesar pops up as like an appetizer for Mechagodzilla and then sits on the sideline the rest of the time when Godzilla shows up to actually take on Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, and it's Godzilla who does like the finishing blow of actually like grabbing this head that's been able to spin around this whole time and then spins it around so hard that it breaks off.
Yeah, why didn't he just like boop, like just pull it up? I don't know.
We also have all this focus on the space titanium, and I thought that would be sort of a bigger thing. Like, I know at the beginning it's the foreshadow, like, oh, something's weird's going on with this Godzilla. Why is it that when Anguirus hurts him, metal comes off?
Yeah.
And it's like everyone who has walked into this theater has seen the poster for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, it's not a surprise that it's a mech.
Yeah.
We know that it's a mech. The other thing, too, why didn't they use the EMP thing to, like, take out the mech?
Oh, the tobacco pipe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it creates an EMP that disables electronics, why didn't they just use that to take out the mech?
Or why didn't Professor Miyajima, when the aliens held him at gunpoint to fix Mechagodzilla, do something in Mechagodzilla to disable it?
Like, the thing with EMPs, and now listen, I'm not an engineer, so I could be wrong, but my understanding of EMPs is that they're not necessarily like on a power scale of this is a strong EMP that can take down big electronics versus this is a weak EMP that only affects little electronics. Like, an electronic is an electronic is an electronic.
Yeah.
The strength of the EMP is in its range, I believe. So it's either this is a small pulse that will only take out electronics within, for example, like a 20-foot radius, versus this is a strong enough pulse to take out the electronics in an entire city. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the pipe itself.
That's about correct.
From what I gathered, the pipe was not like a pulse kind of thing. It's just you split the pipe in two, and then they were different charge. So you held the two different pipe parts on either side of a machine, and then all the electrodes would get fried.
What?
So it was less of an EMP pulse and more of like holding a positively charged magnet and a negatively charged magnet on either side of a computer, and then it fries. That was the science behind the incredibly plot important magnet pipe.
I hate this.
There's just a lot of weird
There's
decisions
just nothing
made
like
for
we
this
try
movie.
and logic it, and then it's like it doesn't even work. Like, there's just no logic at all. There's no internal logic in this movie.
And there were so many just easier decisions that could have been made. Instead of having two professor characters, one of whom shows up for a second, does nothing, and then leaves, just have the one professor character. Or, instead of setting up this magnet pipe, how about at the end of the movie, they just take an axe to the control panels or pour some liquid on them or literally anything.
Yeah.
And just this whole plot with King Caesar, it's like, okay, cool, if we're going to spend all this time setting up King Caesar, let's actually have King Caesar do something besides just kind of, as you said, be the appetizer for Mechagodzilla.
This is, yeah. Ugh.
Also, I'm going to say I was disappointed when the prophecy was like, yeah, two monsters will team up to fight this great threat, and it's not Godzilla and Anguirus. It's like, oh, okay, so Anguirus is chopped liver, I suppose.
They just brought in Anguirus to get the shit kicked out of him. Poor Anguirus.
As they do.
Yeah.
So one quick fun fact before we wrap this up. So I mentioned earlier how this movie had a few different titles. So Cinema Shares International got the U.S. distribution rights for this movie, and they named it Godzilla vs. the Bionic Monster, which I guess Mechagodzilla was too good for them, I suppose. But in July 1977, Universal Television were threatening to sue because they owned the rights to the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. And so they thought they sort of owned the trademark to the term bionic. So the movie was quickly changed to Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster.
I don't think you can just own the trademark on a single word like that.
True, but you can file a lawsuit and have more money than the person you're suing.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is actually a thing. How often this happens, we're not entirely sure. But if like you have, for example, let's say you are a major studio film and you have hired me as a writer for hire on this film, and I go ahead and, you're like, oh, this is what the movie's about. It's about these kaiju and stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. I wrote a kaiju movie for, WB, and they never like developed it. So I'm just going to use a lot of those same ideas and same characters and same dialogue and stuff to fit for the kaiju movie that you want, Disney or whatever. And then I do that and I give it to you and you make it blah, blah, blah. What WB is going to do is go to Disney and be like, excuse me, you're in copyright violation because we do own the script that never got made into a movie. That is intellectual property. That is copyrighted material. And if you don't pay us, we will sue you. and this will prevent you from releasing the movie, because they'll wait to do this until it's like 3 weeks from when the movie comes out, because if you delay like the premiere of your movie that close, like you can lose a lot of money to do that. So yeah, I mean, like that is like absolutely a concern.
Oh yeah.
We don't know how often this happens though, because they settle it without having to sue. So
interesting.
Like in that example, Disney would just pay WB like a chunk of money so that WB doesn't sue them.
Yeah. Well, so here's what we got. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is introduced. There's a lot of cool Mechagodzilla stuff in the future. This movie in particular, not so cool. I mean,
not one of them.
It's really cool when Mechagodzilla and Godzilla do the trading laser blast thing at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And then, there's still the little cool parts here in the movie. Godzilla getting electrically charged, the initial Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla fight. Yeah, there's some crumbs of cool. But this movie is so weighted down by how incomprehensible the human plot is and how much time we spend on it. So yeah, Kayla, what would you rate this movie?
Like a half star.
Really?
I don't know. Like it's just, and I know that I've railed against other. It wasn't. Maybe 1 star.
I'll give it 1 star.
Yeah. It was just nah. I mean, the kaiju were cool, but like that's not enough. You get the star for the existence of this is a cool kaiju, but it wasn't a good movie. So it doesn't get anything else.
Well, Kayla, guess what?
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Oh God.
What's the next movie we're watching, Kayla?
I want to watch a good movie. Okay. Next, we'll be watching Terror of Mechagodzilla, 1975. Be sure to watch the Japanese language version, not the English version. If you liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, and share with a friend. Follow us on social media. We got the links in the show notes. We also have a Ko-fi. You can support us there and get access to cool bonus content like extra episodes and access to the private Discord, where you can talk with other geeks about Godzilla and all things Digital Kaiju. Check it out. Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knudsen. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.